is basically a BIM model of an old 1970s market, which I'm going to show you in a second. But the important thing for us with this is to work out how best to get the information that they actually need. So it's being driven by the fire engineering team, but we're also working with the building safety team. And we want to use this to also engage with people that are involved in life cycle replacement, retrofit, decarbonisation. So there's a range of different things. So I'll just share with you the setup. Sorry, bear with me. So
George, you're hearing that echo, aren't you?
yeah, I'm just trying to switch it off.
Oh no, okay, I was just checking.
It's amazing. I've been on this all day, and all of a sudden it's changed. Okay.
So,
blame Microsoft, eh? So this is the market. It's in Tower Hamlets. And Barry's going to show you some detail on this, but that's broadly where it is. And what they need to do is look at this from a fire risk perspective. So they're going to be thinking of things like how they're going to get compartmentation information, and the things about fire risk assessments and things like that. So what we want to try and do as a group is work out the most effective and cost-effective ways of being able to gather this information. That's the boundary that we're working to. That's just what it looks like off Google Earth. And this is what it comprises. There's 4 residential blocks on either side of the market. There's plant rooms and things like that. There's the market itself. There's the shops, including stock rooms and service roads, underground car parks. There's also the whole district heating system, which I think that's going to be quite an important thing, because district heating systems have now become part of there's new legislation involved. And there's also some bungalows that we need to manage. And initially, we've, as Barry's going to show you, we've already run a drone survey on it. That's what it comprises, and that's the one from tomorrow. Actually, Copley. That's the data center. So the purpose of this, really, I'm going to hand over to Barry now. But the purpose of this is to bring together people that maybe have got some expertise in this sort of thing. Who I'm talking about maybe fire engineering and doing inspections and creating information on existing buildings from a fire safety perspective, but also building safety, ventilation, because one of the big challenges that everybody's got at the moment is how they're going to handle mold. So these are the sorts of things that we want to do in a joined up way. When the survey's done, we want to make sure that we can capture as much of the information that's needed going forward as possible, so it can be reused over the next 3 to 5 years as a baseline to work from. And being able to think of smart ways of doing that. This is going to go out to tender probably September, October time. So anything you can input at the moment, if you're interested in, I know Steve Duffy, I think, will be interested in doing the either some of that, maybe Justin would as well. There's a range of different opportunities here that we can talk about. The key thing is to make sure that the specification's right, which is what Barry's doing. I'll hand over to you now, Barry.
Okay, thanks. I'll just share my screen. Window. What am I looking at? Hold on a sec. Didn't want to share that. Hold on a minute.
Just while you're doing that, Barry, the other thing that I was going to say is that what we've got is we as Active Plan have got a big asset type library which is already pre-populated with the information that's needed from a residential perspective for housing. So that we're going to be using that's going to be part of the process to use 360s to create the asset data. So when we go out to tender, the process will be to tender for producing a geometric, producing floor plans and that side of things. But then what we're then going to do is open it up to people who are subject matter experts who can then look at the 360s that are going to be created and then be able to tag them with the right information. Okay.
Can you see a block of flats, or can you see the Watney market? Oh, great. Okay. Can you see it spinning around?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. Well, this is really just to describe the project in a bit more detail. I think George has done a pretty good of describing the outline and things. But what we did with this is we flew it with a drone and a very early morning before the market was set up. Oh, hold on a sec. I've lost it again. Where have I gone? All right, there you go. So what we've got in here, this is an open market. You can see my cursor?
Yep.
Okay, so in here, we've got an open market. So we flew that very early morning. Underneath, you can just about see there is a whole series of retail shops, all sorts of shops. Difficult to see underneath, but you've got those. And then on top of that, we've got 3 floors of residential accommodation. We've also got some accommodation over here. These bungalows here are all linked, as George said, to the central system, but they're all part and parcel of the same block, for which we're going to have to do a whole series of surveys looking at, in particular, say, fire systems and things like that, because this is the main driver. But what we're also doing while we're here is we're trying to get a scope from Tower Hamlets so we can expand the scope, the level of detail that the BIM model needs to be in for different communities and different professional heads or different disciplines need to capture. The big issue with this from a point of view is underneath this, from this edge of the bungalows pretty well over here, and you can just see over here, if I move it in, okay, there's a slip road here going to an underground car park, and in the underground car park is a whole series of spaces, rooms where the market traders store all their goods. So what you've got is like a perfect storm of fire risk. You've got a car parking underneath, you've got retail, storage, you've got residential on top. Now, we have a number of challenges with this. The first thing is just to figure out how we can get access to everywhere. Well, the public areas, that's fine. The retail places are fine. What we're proposing to do as well is rather than scan every single residential property, is just to do a few and get a schematic or a thing, essentially, for want of a better word, copy and paste the room spaces. And what we'll be doing is, so in order to do that, what we're going to do is put out to tender laser scanning or LiDAR scanning to scan inside the buildings. So we've got some drawings, because currently we don't really have anything we can overlay and we can map. The next phase will be doing 360 imagery, so we can then start to populate everything that the Tower Hamlets Borough Council want to do. Now, the priority is for fire systems, but this is going to be a sandbox for our group as well. So we're proposing that we use this as a tool that lots of people can contribute to or use for training or just try different things out. Just to test concepts and to look at how we can do this. At the end, we've got to deliver something, of course, to Tower Hamlets, but we can purpose and layer this model in different ways to suit different people's disciplines, or what we call asset champions. So you're going to have people who are experts in fire systems, fire safety, etc. Other people who are associated with that. One of the interesting things we're going to have to deal with is a thing called PPEs or PEEPs, which is the personal evacuation plans for people who have some sort of disabilities. But at the same time, there's all sorts of things that we can use 360 documentation for people who are not necessarily CAD users. I mean, we could give people a point cloud of this, but not many people will be able to use it apart from a CAD person who might use it to do that. But we've already done, and it's to give you a little bit of a tour. So what we've got is these residential properties here. There's front and back divided this way. We've got these bungalow. We've got another level here, and then and this is all connected to the bungalows. And you actually see, if you look through here, the spaces that go into the garages, the big garages underneath. So this is about the extent of the garage. It's also like a perfect storm, if you like, of all the difficulties we are likely to come across when we're doing HRBs or any public housing building to try it. So we thought this would be a great project for people to be able to collaborate to. And what you can do, I mean, for example, I can give you a link to this and you can all play about with it. If you want a link, just send Barry, just text Barry in the chat and I'll happily send you the link so you can explore it yourself. We're using this as a thing called Naira. We have another application called Sorvo, and Sorvo allows us to add all sorts of other information into it as well. But if you want a link for this, just text link and we'll happily send that through to you. And you can view it and have a play around with it to your heart's content. But the timeline is next week we're having meetings with Tower Hamlets to come up with a specification for the BIM model. In other words, what level of detail are they going to need that BIM model created to? And then once we've done that, we'll be putting it out to tender to a number of survey companies who will be coming in and actually creating an overlay drawing, doing the scanning. So we've got a complete 3D internal survey as well as the external survey we've got now. Hope that makes sense.
I think as well, Barry, that once we've had the meeting with the various different users in the council, we'll be able to identify what additional information is needed that isn't coming down to surveys per se. It might be fire engineering. It might be, as I said earlier, mold. There's a whole range of things that I'm sure, will tell us that they need information on, that we can then, rather than go to a single company that then manages it on, maybe subcontracts it. It makes more sense for our community where we've got people that are experts in fire doors, for example, to come in and do that as a work package. And other people, one of the biggest challenges I see is identifying where all the fire compartments are and what the walls are made of, and because that's always something that's difficult to achieve. Now, we obviously don't want to bore the ocean in terms of, doing intrusive inspections, but it's also a matter of, somebody that maybe is very experienced, maybe people from, I don't know, British Gypsum or Knauf, who understand how walls are made up, whether there's a way that they can look back and say, okay, this is 1970s build. What's the likelihood what's the likelihood of the wall construct? I mean, that might be something, Justin, you as an architect, you might have a feel for, and we might be able to get some shortcuts to be able to do things so that when somebody's going to site, they're actually going with a pretty good idea of what they're going to find.
I think the other thing that we're trying to do with this, George, as well, is I mean, we're saying, well, what's in it for people? But the idea really is to come up with an idea of best practice, so people can specify, figure out what they've got to do, what works, and also what doesn't, because we will inevitably make mistakes on this. But the point about it is to do those and fix them fast. But the idea really behind opening this project up, which is a commercial project, but it's real. Okay, this isn't some made up sandbox. This is a real application, and it gives people the opportunity to look and try things out. Best practice. How do you go about doing this? And more importantly, how do you go about specifying this to your clients or your colleagues? I think so we can come up with a not a template, but this is the things we need to think about. I'll give you one example. One of the things, because we're doing different surveys, is we're looking at using what's called a single point target. So if we're using different data sets like drones or conventional surveying or 360 imagery, one of the things we will be doing on this survey is using common coordinated points. So at a later stage, you can come back and you know exactly where you are in that building, in the market, in the underground car park. So you can compare and look at things on a trend basis. So essentially what we're trying to do here is open this up as a best practice tool that people can collaborate with, or even if it's just sat from the sidelines and seeing and getting an interest to what are the problems and the things that challenges that we have in coming up with asset information management. Obviously, there's a different thing to do with new build and a different thing to do with brownfield. New build, we've got lots of information from the BIM model and construction and as-built and stuff like that we can hand over. In this particular case, as with most of the buildings, there's very little knowledge we can hand over apart from anecdotal stuff.
I think the thing is as well, Barry, that I was talking, for example, this morning to Navis, Navis, the camera people, and they've got a new technology, MLX, I think it is, which is, it's not the expensive or quite as expensive thing, but it's not quite as accurate as the top one, right? But for this purpose,
BLX.
yeah,
BLX,
it that for this purpose it is probably adequate. And the point I'm making is that there's going to be a range of technologies that people will be able to use, because as we've discussed, a lot of people at the moment are doing scan to BIM, but actually they're not. They're doing scan to 3D, because a BIM model, at least in theory, you should know what the walls are made of and what the doors are and all the rest of it. And you don't get that from a scan to BIM process. Scan to BIM's very useful for certain purposes, but what we're trying to do here is scan to asset. And I don't know anybody that's done that before. So I think we're breaking new ground in doing this. And therefore, we've got a combination of point cloud, of as Barry was saying, LiDAR, and 360s, and the combination of those things, again with a robust asset database library, is that we can move towards that.
I think that the other thing, just to add to that, George, is because we're going to be using probably 5 or 6 different technologies, all and stitching them together. But what we'll be able to do is a head-to-head comparison on time, cost, etc., etc. So when you're specifying things, you can figure out, well, what do I need? It may well be just 360 imagery is perfectly fine. But in the absence of drawings, you may well have to commission LiDAR or SLAM or Navis or whoever it might be to come in and actually do the drawings. So what we will be doing in this process as we go through is trying to come up not with an Excel spreadsheet, but some comparisons so you know what the pros and cons are and what you need to specify from your data capture people. And there's going to be different jobs. If you're just doing it for fire survey, do you need to have a centimeter accuracy for your drawings? Probably not.
Exactly.
But if I need to capture something fast and get that information into a format that I can share with other subject matter experts who haven't got time to visit the site, and you can pass that on and ask for advice, is there a more efficient way of doing that? Now, I've got my own view, but I need to sanity check it. And that's one of these things that we're going to be doing, is reporting back and helping people decide which is the best practice to inform the asset owners. When they specify we need doing this, sometimes they don't know what they don't know, when they don't know what questions they should be asking of the supplier.
I think the other thing, Kirsty, if I may, I'll just finish off on that. One of the challenges at the moment is the technology that's coming through at the moment is stunning. There's all sorts of new technology coming through. The challenge is that a lot of the companies that are buying and going out and offering that are not necessarily experienced geospatial people. So they're actually buying something, and they are probably relying on the on what they're being told can be done, and they will go out quite correctly and sell that to a client, and then find that some of the things that they have been promised can't be done. So a good example of that is being able to take a point cloud and then turn it into a BIM model. And there's all sorts of people that are offering to do that, but actually in practice, it's very questionable as to whether it's there yet. There's still quite a lot of manual intervention needed to make that work. And Steve, you used to work for Leica, didn't you? So yeah, I think you would confirm that there's a lot of things that people may think are straightforward, but actually aren't. So one of the things that we're going to be checking here is how fast we can get to what we need. Kirsty.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm Kirsty. I'm from SFG 20, which is obviously the kind of PPM maintenance standard. I suppose my question is, I appreciate a lot of this talk is about technology. I'm curious to know, has any thought, or is there an opportunity maybe being given to what comes out at the other end? So we're part of an industry alliance with MBS around Uniclass, GuideM, NRM3, so that we're trying to map all the standards across, because we absolutely recognise, sitting at the operational phase of the building life cycle, that a lot of the information gets lost at handover from kind of construction into operation. And it would be great on these kind of pilot projects, now that we've done all those mappings, if there was a way of showcasing how that bit of it can be used as well. Might there be an opportunity for that?
Yeah, we're in fact, actually, absolutely, we're doing that. We're doing exactly that. I mean, we're one of your partners. Sorry, we, as in, I should have flagged this up. I'm chair of BIM and asset management, but my business is Active Plan. So we're already doing a lot with SFG 20.
Yeah.
And also the whole point about being able to get the information out. What you've just said there is exactly what we are doing. So if I know that Andy Green and others are doing work around this area. So if you wanted to bring that into what we're doing here. I appreciate, that I don't think it's yet released, is it?
So behind the scenes, so we had a call on Friday with all of the representatives. So we had Joe from Sibsy, we had Andy Green, etc. So we have the data, we just haven't publicly, we're still signing it off, but we already used it on some projects in the Middle East before. We have used it, and we could do on this.
That's exactly what we're trying to do. Is the difficulty most people have is they don't know what they should be asking for. And let's say something like Tower Hamlets, they may commission a survey, but they will get 40 different versions delivered to them, and there's no commonality between them. So one of the key exercises for this is to look at what we need to specify in any data capture and what standards will we want to use. Even within the same council, people getting things in different formats. And that's just mental. What we need to have is an industry standard which will help with compliance and all sorts of things later on, because it just makes common sense, but there's nothing common about common sense, is there? So yeah, but no, if you've got things like that, I mean, we'll have a conversation over the next few weeks, and George, to look at the framework of the data categorization and sort of the schemas that we can deploy when we're looking at this, because this really informs the level of detail that we do our 3D model to. As George rightly says, we're not doing scan to BIM, we're doing scan to there's a wall and a shape. We don't know what's in that wall. So we don't know what category a fire door is.
So I'll hand over to you in a second, Justin, but the point, a really important point, Kirsty, is that we're already doing a lot with we manage Sodexo's database.
I know Joe said she'd already been kind of quite involved, and I said, oh well, I'll just keep kind of banging the same drum then.
Absolutely. So the important thing is that we really understand how SFG20 connects to asset data. Yeah. And one of the things that is important that I think a lot of people that aren't doing that type of data engineering work, we had a data engineering session about an hour ago, by the way.
I'm hoping to join the next one. I couldn't make the one earlier.
That's good. But the point is, one of the challenges is that SFG20 will have maybe 2 or 3 different procedures for the same asset type, depending on what system it's in or where it's being used. So therefore, this is a really good, important project for this, because what we've actually got is the opportunity to say not just that that's a valve or a pump, we're actually saying it's a pump or a valve that is doing this thing, which is what you need to know for it to to assign the right SFG20 code. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's one of the big challenges in terms of what you've been doing to map Uniclass and SFG20 and NRM. I was involved in that probably 5 years ago when MBS were doing it, and they asked us to help with that. The challenge is that that you're mapping classifications that have been put together for different purposes.
Yeah.
And there's not a direct match in many cases. They need to be interrelated. So what you're doing is excellent, but what we now need to do, and I think you're quite right in saying that a project like this, and we're doing another one tomorrow morning on data centers.
One, is it? Oh yes, I'm hoping to join that the next time.
Yeah. So the what I'm saying is that what we're trying to do is identify a number of real jobs that have got some commercial potential for the people that get involved, but I mean we can't guarantee that because they're going out to tender. But that you can influence the scope of what we're going out to tender for, which is normally something that's valuable to people. And therefore we can also brief the procurement people as to what good looks like, so that they're not going to just go hopefully for the lowest price. Justin.
Hi there, thanks for letting me in. It was just to address something that came to mind when Kirsty just said what she did about SFG20, and also Barry when he said within certain councils, sometimes they have information in different formats. Is that right, Barry? So all I was going to say, I don't know if this is something that's already underway or whatever, but when George is saying that, and part of George's mission is to sort of capture the data sets that people need to ask for. If I just share my screen very briefly, I'll turn it off in a second. But this is an example of an organisation which could effectively be a council, and it's a exchange information requirement. It's 36 pages long, but basically what it is that organization gets to say to everybody involved from the beginning before they do anything, here is our SFG requirement or equivalent, and this is for this data set you're delivering, these are the rules. And then if everybody has that as a requirement, so like a maintenance information requirement, let's say, then you have a fixed protocol and basis under which, if everybody agrees to it, everybody works along with that protocol, and somebody has to police it as well. Is that, George, is that useful as an idea, or is it already underway in that way?
Well, essentially, what you showed there is the EIR. Underneath that, there should be the AIR, the asset information requirements, which does exactly what you've just said. If it's done properly, then that should define how the information about the assets should be being delivered. And that's something that Mo does as well. I mean, we do that as Active Plan. We've got an asset information requirements tool. And what we do is take what you've just shown there, which is a document. And unfortunately, people often don't read documents. Sorry to, yeah.
That's why you need I often say this, but that's why you need information managers to police people along the way. But yeah, I just thought I'd offer it as a way of capturing it. So yeah, the SFG requirement could be in there.
There's also the BIM execution plan requirement, which is part of that as well. But from my experience, it's not really followed, and often on very large projects, by the time you come to actually execute the project, the EIR and the requirements in it are no longer valid because the industry's moved on and the actual requirements have changed, or the way it's been delivered has changed. So it's quite a hard thing to actually mandate, because 5 years when the EIR is written at the very start of the project to when it actually starts on site, there's a good amount of time passes.
I think,
from my experience.
I think it's a really good point you make, Stephen. But one of the interesting things is, as well, is there are a number of statutory regulations coming into place now, and in order to report and pass those and make them auditable and conform, this sort of taxonomy classification would make auditing much simpler. So things like Regulation 38, but also there's another thing that's coming up as well, which is Martin's Law, which we've probably got 2 years to prepare for. But that, in the same thing, is going to be a statutory responsibility, and in order to do that, there has to be an asset requirement. So it's not just, these are not would like to do and wouldn't it be good if, these are now you've got to do it.
Yeah.
In fact, or it's not just about facing the fine anymore. If you don't do it and something happens, then people go to jail. It's not, we can afford to pay that fine if we're non-compliant. Things are changed in that way.
Absolutely. But Barry, you're absolutely right with Martin's Law, which is the security one, isn't it? There's one even more pressing, and that's AWAB's law.
Yeah.
And that's about mold and ventilation, and absolutely critical from SFG 20's perspective. So yeah, I think we've got a lot of good stuff that we can bring together on this.
I think it's for me, what it is sort of like a catalyst project. If you say to somebody, come up with some good ideas, and just given a blank piece of paper, it's very difficult. But if you've got something you can focus on and go, oh, I can see why, and do that, it helps people be more creative and innovative. And the idea really about this is to come up with the best practice that this community can share and inform our clients and inform our colleagues as to what we might be able to use. So for my part, I'm going to be helping bring the data together. But anybody who wants to come up with any ideas or any requirements or on a wish list, if you've got a wish that you would like this model, this information data pack, portal, whatever we have to include that you would find useful, please let us know, because it might be something very simple, but could be worth a fortune to people.
Could I just type a couple of things together, George, just briefly?
Please.
So, Stephen, what you said, Stephen, about projects potentially being 5 years long, EIR not being implemented by the right people, and then by the time it gets to the end. So, a big part of what George is sort of heading up here, and some of the, well, all of us really, is to kind of raise what I call competency. Yeah. So, people's involvement and kind of understanding of what's going on. It's part of their daily awareness. As Barry said, it's becoming, or it's already legislation. But I'm finding on the projects that I'm on, that the building owner is engaging more sort of permanent staff that through meetings are just rejecting information straight away. If it's wrong, it's happened to me. I created a project file. There was 2 conflicting pieces of protocol information. I gave it 4 digits. They rejected it. They said it's 5 digits. So even I got caught out. But a good thing is that they are managing it. So I think the culture is changing. That was it, really, George.
That's good to know.
Yeah, just building on that. What we're on a project at the moment, a large project. Joe Harris is involved in that, actually, Kirsty. Where it was started probably 4 years ago. And when we're now reading the data, because we've got tools that automatically check to see if the data that's being provided is right, it keeps picking up that they've used the wrong uniclass codes. Now, they haven't used the wrong uniclass codes. They've used the uniclass codes that were defined 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And the problem is, I say the problem is, it's not a problem. It's Uniclass, MBS, update their Uniclass codes probably 4 times a year.
And
Now,
they did reuse them as well, although that they've said has stopped now, thankfully.
Yeah, that wasn't so helpful, was it? Where they actually used the same code for a different asset or different product. But yeah, but I think the thing is that people are now becoming a bit more aware. As Justin's saying there, that the data is actually important, because up till now, people haven't really been doing too much with the data. In the data engineering one that we ran earlier, we showed how, for example, the coordinates of things from different files actually mean that the information, the asset information, the location of assets is way out, and it's simply because of the way the data was generated from the models, and because people haven't understood. The model looks fine, from a 3D modeling perspective, clash detection, all the rest of it, but when you then get the data export, the locations of things are in the wrong place, and therefore they need to be corrected. I mean, it's arguable. You should say perhaps the original authors should have got it right first time, but because nobody's ever checked before, they didn't know that the information was coming out. And remember that a BIM model is generally, there's no such thing as a BIM model on a decent sized project. There'll be 15, 20, 30 BIM models, all of which are being federated, and therefore all of that needs to be coordinated. So part of the thing that excites me about this project is that we're doing something at a ground level that's really important. I mean, I was down with Barry and we went to Watney Market, and the people, the market traders that were setting up the residents were asking us what we were doing, and they're really engaged because this is their home or it's their workplace, and if we can do something to help make those safer, I think that's really good. I learned one particular thing is that seagulls don't like drones.
No.
So as the drone was flying around, the seagulls were attacking it. So that was an interesting
That's just normal for us, George. You have to get out more often.
It's especially bad at this time of year with the nesting of, and yeah, it's tricky, very tricky.
No, but I think it's a valid point. Is one of the critical things that most councils want to look at as well. I mean, we're talking in a very abstract form about Uniclass and this and that. What an awful one, and that has come out of the Grenfell inquiry, is engagement with the community, the engagement with the residents. And that's one of the things we're going to try and do here. I mean, open this model up to the residents so they can look at it as well. within certain limits, of course. I mean, obviously, you don't want to give them information that they can't use, but I think this is a job that allows us to play and try and experiment and use as a reference for other people. As far as I can see, it's like there's no specification that comes out from a housing association to a survey company to say, we need you to do this to this accuracy, and we need you to deliver it in this. There's nothing like that out there. It's mostly BIM level modeling, which is completely inappropriate to this because, as George says, it's not a BIM model.
It should be flipped on its head, really. In my view, it should be fully based upon what do they want. If they're informed enough to know what they want and know what the deliverables are, then that would dictate everything else.
Exactly. So I mean, it's a bit like
the point that Justin was making. Yeah,
absolutely. It's exactly the point. And that's why we're spending a fair amount of time talking with lots of different departments to figure out what information would they like. Whether it's decor, whether it's the boiler system that is in the house, when it's due for replacement. These are all things that are really important in asset management, because what you're looking at is safety, of course, but also is how much is it going to cost to replace the boilers in there, and do they have to replace the windows to make them more energy efficient, etc., etc. So if we do this, it's just like in this case, we can produce an asset information register, which will help them predict. I don't like the line. I like life cycle, but it's mostly death watch. How long is this thing going to last before we have to replace it? How long can we prolong the asset's life before we have to knock it down and build another one? That's the key information that councils need.
So if you know people who are considering doing this, if you know people that are commissioning surveys and commissioning asset capture, then try and plug them into what we're doing here, because we certainly would be interested in sharing with them what we're coming across, and we'd like them to share with us what they're doing as well. And it may well be that there's things that we're doing they could actually use and implement. We end up upgrading the industry because we're then enabling some of the really good firms, the large firms that are doing asset surveys, but they've come to it. Their normal way of doing asset surveys is sending people to site and the boots on the ground surveys, whereas this approach is fundamentally different.
There are things that we would like to do over the period of time, as well as looking at ways of automating some of the asset capture and tagging. Sort of like, well, okay, there's a fire extinguisher there, there's a fire door, there's a this, that. So we don't necessarily, we can remove the need. We can concentrate the priority of the boots on the ground to focus on the things that need investigating.
Yes.
Okay, so you can direct them and say, look, we've got a mold patch here, or we've got this dilapidation there, or there's that. So they don't have to explore the whole building.
Harry, have you got any of the 360s that you took?
Not at the moment, no, but we'll put them on. Yeah, we'll be doing that when getting that ready for the meeting in Copley. Sorry, for the meeting at
on Monday.
On Monday, yeah. But what I'll do is I'll put those in the link. So if anybody wants the link, I'll upload it with some of the 360s we've got. We've got a very good close-up of a squashed rat that George ran away from in the market. There's wildlife there, let me tell you. but no, and I'll put that in. So what we'll do is we'll put a portal with a link to this information in, and then you can have a look at it. And as we build it up, and build up the layers and stuff, you can have access to it. And that's the whole point, is to share what we're doing.
Oh, hello. Sorry.
Hello.
Can we just go around? So Andrew from Birmingham Kirkland, I think, is it, Andy? Are you there? It's always a problem to call out, isn't it?
Yeah. Just I'm busy multitask at the moment. Sorry there.
No, sure. Sorry to put you on the spot. I just wondered whether there's anything that from what we're showing here, whether that might be relevant to any of the projects that you're working on, Andy.
Yeah, I mean, as you were, had a look through there some of the 360 options before in the past, which we do, but yeah, it's actually is done at the moment. But yeah, it's interesting to see what's happening across the board.
Kevin, where are you from?
Hi, good afternoon. So I'm Kevin Morrissey. I work for BESA, so Building Engineering
So you work with
Services
Kirsty.
Association. Yeah, we're part of the same group. So I was interested in one of the topics that we are very focused on at the moment is mold and mold remediation, and somebody mentioned earlier in terms of OAB's law, but at the moment there's a lot of uncertainty as to how that should be actually implemented and what effects or what measures should be taken on site. There's equally issues around classifications of mold and exposure levels other than the visible. So
Sure.
at the moment we are, I suppose you can see what you can see in terms of mold, but we're considering how the measurement of mold and how the relative concentrations both within and out with the building should be measured and classified and implement action levels. So there may be an element there that draws our interest and attention from members.
Cool. Ravi, I spoke to you a couple of weeks ago. You were doing some very interesting projects. Are you doing anything on existing buildings? Not there. And Harry, you're from. Remind me where you're from. He's not there either. Okay. I hope that people haven't just got bots on this rather than actually attending the meetings.
Well, you don't know where you're not sure where he's from. We don't know where he is, so we're not doing very well, really, are we?
Yeah. Well, I think we do know where he's from. Yeah, you will have the record where he's from.
No, we've blocked all bots actually for a number of reasons. Yeah, so that won't be the case.
Yeah. Mo, what do you think? Do you think we're doing something interesting here?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, in an ideal world, we have a lot of these things as information requirements, and people don't have to recreate these over and over again.
Sure.
I think the other thing while I was hearing you speak that I was thinking about was ideally you'd have the requirements, but then off the back of that you'd almost get a recommendation for different ways of collecting against these requirements. And start heading in that direction. I think definitely the idea of working as a community on building these requirements for different things like would be really good. Because I think like even when you had the scope up at the beginning, you had things like garage, you have plant room, and then you're taking it down to that asset level. But once you've defined the plant room for here, it will equally apply in some of the other workshops that like you have lined up over the next day. So I just think it's quite interesting if we model it in that direction. And I think the conversation around classifications as well is very, very interesting.
Yeah, I think the other thing is that what we're trying to do at the moment is to have far more standardization of how the detailed asset information is being collected. So we're looking at the government standards, FMS 002, I think it is. So that there's a range of different standards that we can start to work to, so that because I think a challenge at the moment is the EIRs and the AIRs that are being produced by clients, but often it's consultants that are providing them. They actually aren't that knowledgeable about what asset information is actually required. So the result of that is that we're getting quite a wide variety of information requirements that are contradictory, or not contradictory, but they're different. So that, you know, somebody's coming out, for example, we've got a conversation going on tomorrow, Mo, around schools. Now, the DFE has got a very explicit set of information requirements that's quite complex, and a lot of the requirements there, I think it's unlikely that anybody will use from an asset management point of view, because they've not been, with the greatest respect, they've not been put together by people that actually understand asset management. And therefore, what we're asking for, what they are asking for, is they're asking supply chains to provide back information that's quite different than information that's needed by, let's say, the health service or commercial buildings or housing associations. And therefore, the fact is, if you can come at it in a methodical way and say, we've got a floor, we've got a space, what attributes do you need for a space? What information do you need about the systems that are supporting those things? What information do you need to know about asset types? That's one of the big problems that we've got. People aren't actually identifying asset types. They are often jumping straight to individual assets. And that makes it a nightmare, Kirsty, doesn't it? With actually tagging that back from SFG 20 perspective. So yeah. I think having that type of structured methodology, if we can improve the industry's understanding of how to do that, is important. But a lot of the authoring tools, and even some of the even things like IFC, they're not very well structured in being able to deliver information in that way. And therefore, there's a process that has to be done to enable that. And again, that's really what this community can help with. Hello, Ravi. I thought you'd disappeared from us.
No, I'm really sorry. I heard you saying my name, but I was on my mobile, so I had to turn on my camera, log into the laptop. But
I wasn't trying to put you on the spot, but I mean, you were explaining to me about the sort of projects that you're involved with, and I just wondered whether it's all new or whether you do get involved in ones where there are existing buildings.
Yeah, so we basically work on both new and existing build. So I belong to a construction, design, and engineering firm, right? We work with owners like hospitals and airports and data centers. So right now, the projects that we are working on is kind of a digital twin. The first thing is to standardize their data collection part for the new builds, but for the existing build, we are doing scans, building that federated data model out of it, turning 2D CADs into 3D, using a little bit of AI to convert, create those walls fastly, rapidly. And then we are doing pretty much, the space management as well as the asset management for them. Right now, we're working for a hospital based out of Indiana, a huge, like a very big hospital, having like more than 13 campuses. We started with one right now. And we're doing like right now, the space management and space data capture is completed. We've been using COBE for asset data collection and standardizing that. Unlike like UK uses Uniclass, but US uses Omni classification mostly for data standardization. So, and and we're connecting to BMS systems to run fault detections and diagnostics and integrate that systems with their CMMS and giving them performance reports on how the building is performing or the campus is performing on a high level. So this is where we are currently working on the focuses right now. And in parallel, we are also working on doing, like, onboarding some of the other hospitals in Virginia.
Good. Okay. Thank you, Ravi. Is there anything else anybody else wanted to ask or contribute?
Yeah. I was just going to mention an area that I'm looking at is scan to simulation or scan to energy modeling. So looking at utilizing scanning technology and actually being able to look at existing estate energy. So I'd like to contribute to that part within this forum as well.
That would be really welcome, actually.
Yeah.
That would be really welcome.
Potentially using some semantic segmentation, so being able to pull out automated assets from the scan data to utilize within that forum for asset management and for energy modeling.
Excellent. Okay.
Picking up on that, Stephen. Sorry to interrupt, George. We haven't specified thermal imaging as part and parcel of the survey yet. Do you think it'd be worthwhile doing that as well, Stephen?
I think it's worthwhile, yes, for the backdrop to
it's done the right way and it's not just some guy flying around.
No, to certainly to age the simulation, to give some more information into the simulation model. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. No, to be honest, I've not even thought of that, but you're absolutely right. I mean, it's energy consumption, insulation is maybe a very significant part of this project as well. That leads into all the things to do with condensation and
just doing a health check on the existing building, then recommendations on how it could be improved. That's the area really.
Okay, no, it's useful. Yeah, it could be. Makes absolute sense. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things, Barry, that we've done work with, or Tim has done work with, is EPCs. So to be able to relate the EPC information back as well. So I think that's a really important part.
Let's see what we can do there to include that in the specification for what we do, because there's no, it's a bit of a no-brainer. Should have seen that one coming.
It'd be nice to put APCs in BREEAM as well.
Yes.
Information, and we were just wondering what format would they be put in.
There's two ways that we're doing that, and that's reading the EPC data into the database, so you can then visualize the performance or non-performance of a particular facility or unit, for example, in housing terms, and therefore you can see where maybe there's a lot of heat loss because there's maybe problems with insulation.
45297.
Richard, could you mute? So I think yes, there's some big opportunities there from that perspective.
Yeah, well, that's great. Just some ideas on how that's done, because we've been required to do it in one of the projects.
Ideas on how it should be done.
Just agreement on the 4I. We're just busy going through agreement with the client or client rep at the minute. Just trying to find my clarifications form while we're in conversation.
Andrew, are you joining tomorrow? The schools.
I'm struggling with time. I mean, that's why I says I'm trying to multitask at the moment, George, because there's loads of sessions popped up at the same time. So
no, absolutely. I mean, to be honest, I need to apologise for that. It's just that the forum meeting, which took place sort of 10 days ago, it was asking for these meetings, and we had to try and I want to try and get them in before the end of July, because there's a lot of people going to be away next week and the week after, sort of thing. So that was my intention, but I apologise that it was such short notice. But a lot of people are going to be away at different times anyway, so it's not a one-off thing. I mean, we had 30 people on the session, or 25 people on the session this morning on safety critical assets, and we had. Richard, how many did we have on the data engineering one?
40, 50.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, so
it was 42.
Yeah, so we've got quite a good sort of traction there, and I've really enjoyed this. I think this has been helpful. If we can use this especially if we can use this to bring additional projects in where people are trying to do the same sort of thing, I think that would be very useful because we can circumvent some black holes.
Yeah, we've had some success with trying to challenge the client or client's rep, I should say, because I've put that comment about they bring consultants in to like interfere, as I call it, sometimes put a span on the works. And we've had a lot of them reject it. I said, they've agreed to us now going forward because we've asked the question, well, why? It's pertinent to ask that, I think.
Are you saying that they've responded favourably or not?
In our favour, yeah.
Ah, excellent. Yeah.
On one project. So yeah, we're just busy going through that process at the moment, but hence why I wanted to hear about the feedback regards to some requirements are still after. So
yeah, I mean, one that we're working on at the moment, we've been through, is they were asking for flow rates on sinks.
Yeah, but I'm having a conversation when we're talking about that.
Yeah, which and flow rates on light switches as well, I think, which is an interesting one. Yeah. So it's I think by asking for too much information, especially if it's the wrong information, it just undermines the process.
Yeah, well, it's just things like demonstrating plant and access and maintenance methods they still wish to do. So yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Well, so yes, more talks, more discussions to go forward with, I'm sure.
Does everybody feel it's been worthwhile?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, good. Tell everybody else, and then we can build the group.
Yeah, I think just one last point. I think one of the interesting things about just looking at these is just the amount of crossover there is between all these different events, all these different things, whether it's asset information engineering or what we're trying to do. So it at some point it'd be nice to just pull all these together and find a way that we're sharing information between the different groups as well. I think that's something to think about.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye, guys.
Thanks.
Cheers. Bye.
Thanks, bye now. Cheers.